But I'm going to tell you something. Pardon me if I sound somewhat hammy now. I don't mean to sound hammy, but a little bit of it in my blood, to be honest with you. I have never yet seen Jesus Christ face to face. I have not. Face to face, as one man sees another man, I have not seen him face to face. If you have, buy me a cup of coffee and I'll let you tell me all about it. But I have not, and I think you have not either. I did meet a man once when I was doing an internship at the Allentown State Hospital, which is for persons who have serious emotional and mental disturbances. God bless them. I remember his name, but I will not tell you his name. But he did tell me that he used to be Jesus Christ. And I said, oh. And then he told me that he is no longer Jesus Christ. And I said, oh. And he said he is now greater than Jesus Christ. And I said, oh. No one has seen Jesus Christ, okay? Therefore, we need someone who is tangible, visible, audible, who, for a period of time, will be a touchstone for us, so to speak, for Jesus Christ. So I call Karol Wojtyła, that nice Polish gentleman who has taken the name John Paul, the second of the name. We call him Pope John Paul II. I look at him and I say, he's the head of the church. But you see, there's a mental reservation when I say it. He's the head of the church. But Jesus is the head of the church. Now, when I was born, the Pope was a nice Italian gentleman who had the name Pius XI. When I was a baby, he died. I don't remember him. And then another nice Italian gentleman came on named Pius XII. I remember him very well. He was Pope from 1939 to 1958. We had a picture of him in our house. When he died, ooh, the Pope died. And we all went boo-hoo, said a few prayers, and then said, let's get another one. In 1958, we got ourselves a nice fat Pope. The previous Pope was a skinny Pope, so we got ourselves a fat Pope. And they called him John 23rd, and he was the head of the church. And he died after 5 years, and then we got ourselves a skinny Pope, Paul VI, 1963 to 1978. And he was the head of the church. And then they elected a new one, and God knows what happened to him. He became Pope and couldn't take it. After a month and a half, the poor gentleman died. And so we had to get another one. Now we have John Paul II, and I hope the Lord gives him breath for a while yet. But realistically, John Paul II is going to have to be collected to his ancestors like all the rest of us. Popes come, popes go. Jesus goes on forever. And he is the head of the church. But you see, I can't touch him right now or hear him right now. So for certain purposes, I deal with his vicar. What's a vicar? A vicar is someone who fills in until the other guy comes back. You see, I'm waiting for the second coming. And who will be Pope at the second coming of Jesus? Well, I don't know who will be Pope at the second coming, but I know who will be Pope 10 milliseconds after the second coming. Nobody will be Pope but Jesus alone. Popes are temporary. Popes come, popes go. Priests come, priests go. Bishops, cardinals, we all come and go. Let me tell you about a ceremony that is carried out at what we call the installation of the Pope. After he's elected, a little time goes by, and then they buy some crepe paper and train the choir and get all the people together, you know, and the bishops, and they have a nice mass, a big mass as we say in Italian, a big mass in St. Peter's Basilica. And the Pope comes in. Lots of splendor. Part of the ceremony is that he's coming in, everybody, hey, whoa, hey. A monk. And they tried to get a monk who is the most obscure little monk, one who doesn't have too much book learning, and one who probably looks a little bit scroungy. And he takes a piece of flax and a match, and he steps in front of the Pope, and the Pope has to stop. And the monk lights the flax and waves the smoke in front of the Pope's face. And the smoke goes up, and the monk says, Pater Sancte, sic transit gloria mundi, which means, Holy Father, thus passes the glory of the world. Meaning, hey, John Paul, don't let this go to your head. You're just a vicar until the big guy gets here. He does that 3 times. Do you see? The gentleman we call the Pope, he's a vicar. And he will die, but Jesus goes on forever. Now, what is my point beneath my point? My point is this. We need someone who is going to blow the whistle and call the shots. My friend, Mr. Dobbs, has said a number of times that you don't need me to tell you what the Bible means. I don't remember telling you that you did need me. But I say, with great respect, you don't need Mr. Dobbs either, if you don't need me. Okay, but we need somebody. If we don't have somebody, then why is it that people who do not have the Pope, but they do have the Bible, they break up? Do you know how many non-Catholic Christian groupings there are? At last count, round numbers, 25,000, not different little churches, 25 different denominations, sects, groupings. 25,000. In the 1830s, a gentleman named Campbell came along, and he was a Presbyterian, and he wanted to do away with sectarianism. I'm sure he was a fine man. I never met him, but I'm sure he was a fine man. And he said, Bible alone. And he formed an association out in western Pennsylvania. And he attracted people. And then they hooked up with a gentleman named Stone. And he had some Baptist leanings. But they aligned with the Baptists. When they got thrown out of the Baptists, what he really wanted to do was create a restored church, the restored church, and not have so many sects. And what happened? There are 3 sects now: the Disciples of Christ, the Churches of Christ, and then the Churches of Christ / Christian. Oh, Mr. Campbell would be so upset at what happened. That's because they don't have a pope. They told us in the seminary, they said, gentlemen, they said, be grateful we have a pope, because they said, that saves you and me the agony of being pope. That's the tragedy of non-Catholic Christianity. Everybody's a pope when nobody's a pope. Do you see? Now, in regard to that technical issue, and I was not trying to snow you with the Greek if I sounded highfalutin to you, as I think my friend, he did not use the term, but he seemed to say, all we need is English. Nah, a little bit of Greek, because the scriptures were written in Greek. And only, this is an important point, the only inspired scriptures are the original manuscripts. There are a number of Catholic translations of the Bible. Not one of them is inspired. And none of the Protestant or Church of Christ, well, of course, the Church of Christ doesn't have its own translation, but none of the Protestant translations are inspired. So notice I said none of the Catholic translations are inspired. Only the original manuscripts are inspired, only. And do you know how many original manuscripts we have of the books of the Bible? Zero, not one. Not one single original manuscript of any portion of the Bible exists. It doesn't exist. Is it in a cave somewhere? Maybe it is. I don't know, though. But not one single, notice I said original, meaning dating back verifiably to apostolic times or to the times of the writings of the Hebrews.